Okay, guys, as I am working through my financial issues, which I actually had to hire a lawyer to deal with my situation because dealing with the individual I was dealing with, which is a government agency, this particular person who is handling my case is a flat out liar. So I was like, I don't have time to deal with this. I have to get a lawyer, and I have to pay them, over $1,000 to get this resolved. And I'm telling you right now, it's only been a week, and best money I ever spent. Okay, and I've only had to hire lawyers twice, but from a perspective of going to court for one reason, dealing with this. But I've hired lawyers for a lot of reasons in my past. Okay, mainly to give me options and give me information. So, our topic today, based on that, is failure. And I couldn't pick um, a particular picture. So what we're going to do is look at all of these from a perspective as I'm telling the story, okay? Because in the reality, in the end, that's really what I'm doing. Is I'm telling you and painting you a story of the reality of what we do here as engineers, as a network engineer, and why you want to get into the field. So my arrogance or ego or aggressiveness that you may perceive, okay, which you're way off. That's not the case. The case is someone has to tell you, okay. First of all, I don't mind being that person that tells you because these are things that people don't talk about because they want to be politically correct and they don't want to rock the boat. And you know what's funny? 9 times out of 10, rocking the boat really isn't just rocking the boat. It's just telling the truth. All right? Okay? Life sucks in so many ways, but there are positives in lives. Okay? Positives and happiness in life does exist. Okay? But there's something that oversees our energy and our personality and our power, and that is failure. And in this section, I am going to change your perception of failure in a lot of ways. Okay? Now, when we fail, from our perspective, we don't see it as anything else but this right here. Okay? All right, and I clicked on that. I don't know if it's going to come up or not, but and there we go. Okay? This is what happens. Okay? All right, and I like the words got in here: the stress, the anger, stop, grief. What is going on, yo? Goddamn, Jesus, stop. Okay, depression, mad, frustration, tired, sadness, pain, suffering. Guys, all this stuff, failure is like one of these things that sets us either on a one direction in the opposite direction or this right here. And if you can actually take this and eliminate its power and take power over all these words, that's what I'm going to try to do for you today. So, let's think of it like this, okay? Remember I was talking about the example as I'm sitting in the back of the car and then I'm like, does the word Gruber mean anything to you, right? I'm that guy that's always in the conference room and when I speak, everyone's like, oh my God, Kyle's saying something. Everyone shut the fuck up, right? Okay, remember that scenario is an image that I created as a fantasy, right? Like I'm just so powerful. Kyle's like, the man, right? Okay, there's two things about that statement. Okay, my brain, yes, created that fantasy, but I'm self-aware that it's a fantasy. I don't react on it. Okay, all right. So, as I was a kid, you got to understand. Okay, all right. Everybody in my family would say, "Kyle doesn't make any sense. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're stupid." And come to find out, many decades down the road, the reality was what I was saying wasn't the fact that I was stupid or made no sense. You were not capable of comprehending what I was saying, even though I was only 8 years old. That's your problem, not mine. Come to find out, my intellect is higher than all of them combined. Okay? All right? But that is from tons and tons and tons and tons of many levels of all these words on the screen that you're looking at the moment. There was an interesting aspect of my life when I became a teenager, okay? And the most hated man on this planet, okay? Which is not the same as today because, first of all, I ain't got time for hatred. One. Two, most likely if I hate you that much, I don't need to be dealing with you anyway. And three, he's dead. So it doesn't affect me as it did as a kid and a teenager. Okay, and that was my grandfather. But my grandfather, even though him and I did not get along and I hated him and I thought of him as the most idiotic man on this planet, my hatred wasn't towards him as a person. It was, I just could not respect him as a man because of the shit that he would do. Okay? So, my grandfather has never, ever taught me a single thing in my life. However, his presence was very beneficial because what I have learned from my grandfather on a regular basis every year was what not to do. Because my grandfather would do dumb shit. Okay? Alright, now, without grinding on that aspect of his stupidity, it's the concept that his failure was nothing more to me but a glob of information. Okay? As I started taking things apart in my childhood, okay, which I started at a very young age, okay, I started realizing what not to do was just as much important what to do. Okay? So, what do we not do? Well, we do not add explosive particles to a pipe, okay, and have that sprinkled all over the threads and thread the pipe while that stuff's on there. What we do is, before we thread the pipe, we clean off the threads, okay, because that friction in itself will make the thing explode, okay? All right, so what not to do is just as important as what to do, because if I'm learning what to do, okay, my mom could be open up my ketchup bottles for the rest of my life. Thank you, Armageddon, for that statement. So now, but that's the reality, and if someone had never told me that when I was making my first bomb, not out of gunpowder because I was too young to buy gunpowder. Okay, when I hit 21, oh yeah, I definitely had my experience with gunpowder. But match heads was a very powerful tool. Just the tips of the match heads to create a bomb. Okay, and throughout all those cutting, that dust actually kind of as we were filling up the pipe, yeah. Okay, our next step was to take a wet rag, okay, to first of all, to remove any dust particles, okay, and oil those threads so there was a lack of friction in case we had missed any dust, okay, all right. You gotta understand that you're talking about an explosive event, taking nothing into a sense of energy in a split second. This is not something that just removes your hands and fingers. It kills you. Okay? So, that false information, okay, was the beginning of my life as seeing failure as something different. Nothing more than information that is needed. Okay? And I can't tell you how many times I've had to eliminate my presence with someone when I'm asking them questions about what if we go down this path and they say, no, Okay, that's not the right way to do it. We don't do that. And when I explain to them how the wrong way is just important as the right way, okay, and is just as valuable, this person is like, well, that's not the right way. Well, you don't need that information. Okay, so now we gotta cut ties because you only see black and white, where I'm trying to see the variables of the information. Okay, so going back to our next picture, okay, is this right here. Okay, this is the after effect of failure, and we need to change that dramatically, astronomically, and with a vengeance of priority. Okay, because this in itself is the result of seeing failure as a negative in your life. One of the things that I've strongly believed in since the beginning that I can even remember is a 360-degree method of aspects of life and aspects of an entity, meaning that I cannot have happiness without sadness. Okay, I like to use the Secret War aspect. Even though I read the comic book, it was one of my favorite comic books. But when Spider-Man came out, and had the Beyonder in it, which again was one of my favorite comic book characters, Beyonder wanted to perceive good and evil as an experiment, okay, on a planet. And my thought process after that was very in depth, because if we took a planet of pure what's the word, paradise, okay, in order for a person to understand evil, it must classify itself with some type of definition. Okay, all right. I've never experienced this before. Well, what do we call it? Well, we can't give it a name until we define ourselves. Okay, so we're good, and the opposite of that is evil, and one can't exist without the other. Okay, you cannot get to heaven without walking the path of hell, and vice versa. One cannot exist with the other. If you can't prove God, prove that the devil exists, and God has to be on the other side of the spectrum. Okay, now, with that being said, okay, failure is the path of success, guys. You can't have one without the other. And like X-Clan said back in the day, okay, 360 degrees comprehend. A man is getting stronger until he's man no longer. Okay? You have to understand that the opposite exists, and you must walk the path of failure to succeed. And it's not failure, it's just information. Okay? So, I'm flying down the road, which is the things I used to do. I used to love, because I was a speed demon when I was younger. Okay, always had a V8 engine. Even today, I only all my cars are always V8s now. Okay, so the thing is, I'm flying down the road one day. Okay, all right, and I don't know, just something hit me, because I would always make sure that when I'm going up a hill, I would downshift. Oh, and I'm also a manual guy too. I would downshift and take that hill with a vengeance. Until one day, something just hit me. At the speed that you're traveling, you are literally traveling down a path that you can't see. You're blinded what's over that hill. And who the hell closes their eyes while they're going 90 to 120 miles per hour? That's foolish. And could you live with yourself with someone just happen to be walking across the street and you can't stop because you're airborne going over the hill? What the hell? And from that moment on, I made a mental decision that I am not doing those speeds unless I can see what's in front of me. So 100 miles per hour, 120 miles per hour downhill, sure, but not when I'm going uphill, because what's around that corner, because it is a corner, you look at it as a curve, doesn't matter. It's still, you're still going around. You are eclipsed from where you're going. You are blinded. So what's on the other side of that curve? Not smart. So I changed my behavior by looking on the other side of the spectrum and never have sped up a hill ever, ever again. Okay? Alright? That horrible information of failure has given me a new behavior change. Okay? And if I had not changed that or even took the time to think about the opposite aspect of the 360-degree scale, okay, I would still be flying over hills. And doing this on a daily basis, all it does is increase the chance of being on the other side of that 360 degrees, and the result will be me surviving the accident and somebody's death on the other side of that scale. Okay? So, failure is information. It's a path you must take. Okay? So, if success is what you want, then on the other side of the spectrum, failure is what you need. Okay? It's not exactly what you thought I was going to say. Failure is not what you want. No, it's what you need. You can't get on that side of success without that failure. So you better start appreciating all that failure you got. Okay? Because it is information. So, as we talk about exams, okay, taking your first Cisco exam, okay, it's going to, or Juniper, whatever you're going to be taking. All right? Your first failed attempt is you're going to be like this. It's a motherfucker. Okay? And I'm not kidding, because now you're questioning your ability to do this. But what you're not focusing on, okay, that's you sitting right there on that floor. That's who you become right after that failed exam. Okay? And you know what's funny? This is what you should be doing. Okay? All you've done is put yourself on the other side of the scale, okay? And now you got to put your hands in your pocket and look at both sides and realize which one you want to be, and not sit on the ground and call it up at a ball, but take the other shot again and do it again. Because what you're not paying attention to, you might be looking towards the left and thinking you're a failure, but you're not looking at your test score. Because if the minimum score is 300, which will be all the questions you answer wrong, and you need an 800 score to pass, and you got a 700, whatever you have been doing has been 700 worth points to get you there. You're almost at the right side. You're almost taking the right road, not the left road. Okay? Matter of fact, you are 700 points towards your success. But that's not how you see it. And I want you to start looking at that from that perspective. Whatever you've been doing for the last couple of months got you 700 points closer to that 800 score. You're almost there, guys. You only need 100 more points. So go back. All right? Take failure as a necessity and a concept of information, because that's all it is. Okay? And nothing I know more than wanting something so bad and getting a damn 750 score on an 800 passing score and telling myself why I should quit. There's nobody knows that better than I. Okay? But you need to change that behavior. Okay? And luckily I did, because I was this guy with my hands in my pocket. Alright? Took me a week of depression. Alright? And it's real. It's real shit. Alright? And it was the longest week ever in my Cisco career. Okay? But I made a choice. And every one of you has that choice to accept left or go right. Okay? Failure is not failing, it is information. Okay? All right? Never have I said to something, and I'm telling you, everybody's going to, yo. Everyone. And you know what's funny? Okay? It's normally the ones that are close to you. People that should be encouraging you. The ones that you encourage and tell them how smarter they are than you are. Okay? But that's not the return information you get. These are people that have never accomplished anything in their lives, too. These are the first ones to tell you that, you might as well just give it up, okay? You tried and you're just not smart enough. Where they've never had anything in their life that they've ever even set a goal to accomplish and accomplish. No. But I guarantee you, and you've heard it time and time again from them, all the reasons why it's not their fault, why they couldn't do it, and how everything is set up in life, okay, so they can't do it. Okay? Don't be that person. Use failure to your advantage. Use the information to take the right choice towards the right, is what I'm saying. The right road, not the left. Okay? Leave failure where it's at, which means it's a reference guide to information on what not to do so you can actually move forward to the right-handed side road where success is a light source at the end of the tunnel away. I hope I said that right. Be strong. Be determined. Be Cisco.